Here we go with the problem of free will. It's really free will versus determinism. So a good place to start is to reflect on the way that you think about yourself and the choices that you make in your everyday life. Right? And if you examine it a little bit, you may concede that most of us hold two fundamental beliefs about ourselves and the world. Like, first, that we have the freedom to act and become whatever we choose. We're kind of taught this from childhood, right? You can do anything you set your mind to, or if you can dream it, you can do it, or the sky is the limit, right? It's kind of the American credo, right? But we're also taught that every event has a cause, right? For every event or phenomenon or happening or thing in the world, it was caused by something, right? So for instance, the HIV virus causes AIDS, or overexposure to UV rays causes sunburn, or gravity causes objects to fall, right? So the problem of free will can be stated as a dilemma, right? Or the original problem of free will is stated as a dilemma. So the argument goes like this: either human choice is free or it's not free. If it's free, then the law of causality is false. Right? So what this means is that if we are able to have free will unconstrained by antecedent conditions, right, that we can override many of our material circumstances and choose X, Y, or Z, then the physical law of causality is false, so the argument goes. And if it's not free, then people aren't responsible for their actions, because if we are fully determined by causes that are out of our control, then how can we be held morally responsible or legally responsible for our actions, right? So the conclusion is either the law of causality is false, or people are not responsible for their actions, and both of those sound utterly unacceptable. So phrased this way, the problem of free will is a dilemma, right? And we will look at this again in a little bit. So let's look at one camp. All right, let's look at the determinist camp on the issue of whether or not we have free will. This is their series of beliefs. All organisms are bound by the physical laws of the universe, wherein all actions, including human thoughts and decisions, are the result of previous events, all of which are beyond our control. The facts of the past, in conjunction with the laws of nature, entail every truth about the future. Free will is an illusion and myth, similar to saying that Zeus caused thunderstorms or that Helios caused the sun to rise and set. That for some reason we believe we've got this free will, and it kind of feels like we have free will, but really it's a vestige of the past. It's a hangover from a past time when we didn't understand the world and ourselves the way that we understand it today, thanks to science and technology. Through the brain's processing of responses to environmental info, one brain state automatically causes a subsequent brain state, and conscious experience itself has no influence on the physical activities of the brain or the rest of the body. So all of these together, you can consider the ideological platform of the determinists. Now, there are some reasons to believe in determinism. Our characters, and hence the decisions that spring from them, are determined by our genes and biology and environment, things like that. All of these factors are essentially beyond our control, right? And also the universal law of causality, basically stating that all events, like we said earlier, are caused. Science and technology depend upon this notion. Otherwise, things appear chaotic, unexplainable, and unpredictable. And then a sub-point here is that human action is a physical event, Hence, it must be created through an antecedent physical cause. An antecedent just means coming before, right? Free will is not material or physical, right? It's some will, some power we have to transcend our circumstances and choose from a multitude of options, right? So it's not material or physical, yet we bestow upon it the power to cause physical action, which is strange. This is contrary to the nature of the universe and has little to no scientific basis. And, excuse me, the law of conservation of energy, right? So the law of conservation of energy postulates a fixed quantity, a stable quantity of energy in the entire universe, where energy can neither be created nor destroyed, only converted to varying forms or different forms. And a lot of you have studied this in a Physics 101 class. This suggests that any motion of the body is solely caused by and subject to prior physical factors. Thus, the only way for a non-physical factor such as this mysterious will to force a body movement would be for it to create energy, an obvious impossibility. It's not so obvious, but let's see if I can draw this properly with my new pen. So just imagine that this is the physical, this is the entire universe, right? So the law of conservation of energy says all of this energy, in whatever form it's in at any given time, is fixed. It's a fixed quantity. It just changes forms, right? So this could cause that, and that could cause this, and this could cause that, but it just kind of circulates at the and maintains the same quantity within the universe. But a person who believes in free will is going to say, no, we have this will that is independent of what's going on in the physical universe of energy, right? It's saying, hey, look, there's a free will that can kind of bend the laws of physics. It comes from, it's not material. It's a will. It's a mental state, right? That comes in and forces changes in the physical, this is a disaster, but forces changes in the physical universe. So it would be introducing new energy into the universe, and that's where the idea of the obvious impossibility comes into play. Sorry for the lame drawing, but I'm just getting used to this pen and I can't draw anyway. Okay, on the other hand, the opposite pole is the people who believe in free will. They're known as libertarians, not to be confused with the political ideology of libertarian, right? Okay, so this is their ideological platform here. The ability of agents to make choices unconstrained by forces external to us. This is the definition of free will for the libertarians, right? And human choices are free, not fully determined by antecedent causes. They may be somewhat conditioned by them, but they're not fully determined by prior physical causes or antecedent causes like the determinists say. I mean, the power of acting without the constraint of necessity or fate, right? And the ability to act at one's own discretion. That's free will. And although we're influenced by our biology, environment, upbringing, etc., it is ultimately up to us to decide what we will do and who we're going to be. Humans have the distinctive capacity to be self-causing agents, unlike other creatures, right? Because we have consciousness. We are able to reflect on our thought processes and rationalize them and think into the future and plot out the future. And because of this capacity, it's this capacity that gives us free will, unlike in other sorts of creatures, living or non-living for that matter. I guess you wouldn't call it a creature then, but living or non-living entities. Okay. So here's some reasons to believe in free will. Sometimes we deliberate over what sort of actions we take, and this alone is evidence that we have free will. right? And you all can relate to this. There's many times you think, should I do X, Y, or Z? And you just kind of pause and sit there and let the options marinate. So many options. What should I do? If I do X, then this will happen. Or I hope this would happen. If I do Y, then this will happen, right? That very act of deliberation is thought to be evidence for free will, because you don't deliberate about physical laws that you have that fully constrain you, like gravity. You don't sit around in bed in the morning and say, am I going to obey or disobey the law of gravity, right? But some things you do deliberate, and that, according to the libertarians, is evidence that we have free will. We wouldn't be able to do that otherwise. Or regret, remorse, shame, pride, right? These are all emotions that exist in us and presuppose free will. Anytime you look back on something that you've done and you regret it, right? Or you feel ashamed of it maybe, or you feel proud of it. When you're looking back, I'm proud of what I did, or, oh man, I shouldn't have done that, right? It presupposes that you could have done otherwise. And these are very real emotions in human beings, right? The question is, why would we even have these emotions or the capacity for them if it wasn't the case, really, that you could have done otherwise? And also, we feel moral responsibility and the need to cast blame when this responsibility is shirked. How can this be explained if our wills weren't free? If they really weren't free, how did we even develop these capacities in the first instance? Right? Those are all considered reasons to believe in free will. And then there's the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. So this is actually Laplace, right? The French Newtonian philosopher, who at one point boasted that if he knew the location and motion of every particle in the universe, he could predict every future state of the universe at any time. So he's obviously a determinist, right? And then later in history, Werner Heisenberg comes along and says and contradicts Laplace. And he says, well, we can know the position of a particle, but then we're not going to be able to determine its motion or how it's moving, right? Or we can know the motion of a particle, but then we won't be able to determine its position. Therefore, we can't predict its future states. Hence, determinism is false on purely physical grounds. And there's room for free will. Or is the problem of free will a false dilemma? And really, if you remember the original formulation of the problem of free will, it said, it goes roughly like this: either we are free or determined, right? Or it specifically said either our actions are free or they are unfree, right? But then the second premise went, if free, then the law of causality is false. Third premise went, if everything's determined, then we have no moral responsibility, whereby you can deduce either D or M, which is, either L or M, which means either, sorry, just learning how to use this pen, either the law of causality is false, or, where are we? We have no moral responsibility. Okay, anyway, back to the point. Is the problem of free will a false dilemma? Some people say it is. Some people say, look, this argument is logically valid, but it's unsound because you offer us a false dilemma in the first premise. It's not a matter of being absolutely free or absolutely determined. We are not absolutely free or strictly causally determined. It's a little bit of both. And hence the original problem is a false dilemma, according to some, right? And they offer us up a splitting the difference theory known as compatibilism or soft determinism. And this basically says this: all actions are caused. However, your action is free under these conditions. If it's caused by your own authentic wants and desires, as opposed to wants and desires passed down by heritage or environment, right? Or if it's not forced or constrained by anything, and if it stems from an autonomous will and sufficient self-awareness. Under these conditions, you can consider your actions free. Now, here's some thoughts just from major thinkers throughout the years. Schopenhauer gives us one that just kind of sets up the problem and gets you thinking. And his quote is, "Let us imagine a man who, while standing on the street, would say to himself, 'It's 6 o'clock in the evening. The working day is over. Now I can go for a walk, or I can go to the club. I can also climb the tower to see the sunset. I can go to the theater. I can visit this friend or that one. Indeed, I can also run out of the gate into the wide world and never return. All of this is strictly up to me. In this I have complete freedom. But still I shall do none of these things now, but with just as free a will, I shall go home to my wife.'" Right? Just kind of gives you something more, a more concrete example to chew on as far as the problem's concerned. Einstein had some words to say about free will. He says, "Everything is determined, the beginning as well as the end, by forces over which we have no control. It's determined for the insect as well as for the star. Human beings, vegetables, or cosmic dust, we all dance to a mysterious tune, intoned in the distance by an invisible piper." Also, "I'm compelled to act as if free will existed, because if I wish to live in a civilized society, I must act responsibly. I know that philosophically a murderer is not responsible for his crime, but I prefer not to take tea with him." And Francis Crick, one of the co-discoverers of the double helix form of the DNA molecule, right? Watson and Crick, he had something to say. "You, your joys and your sorrows, your memories and your ambitions, your sense of personal identity and free will are in fact no more than the behavior of a vast assembly of nerve cells and their associated molecules. Who you are is nothing but a pack of neurons. So although we appear to have free will, in fact, our choices have already been predetermined for us, and we cannot change that." And then if any of you know the 70s band Rush, they have a song called Free Will with lyrics that go, "You can choose a ready guide in some celestial voice. If you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. You can choose from phantom fears and kindness that can kill." I think somebody got that wrong because I pulled this off the internet. I think it's supposed to be kindness that can cure, but whatever. "I will choose a path that's clear. I will choose free will." Good song if you want to look it up.